All right, today we're talking about multiplication. So we've seen problems like this that say 4 times 5, and we can solve them out and get an answer of 20. Now we can also represent this multiplication problem like this. I have 4 columns of 5 rows. So this is 4 by 5. And if I added up each one of these boxes, guess what? I get 20 boxes. So this is also a representation of 4 times 5. And we get the same answer as well. But what happens if I try to multiply a whole number times a fraction? Well, we can use our fraction bars for this. So I have the problem 2 times 1/2. Well, whenever I multiply something by 2, I'm basically saying I'm going to take one of that thing and add it to itself. Here I have 1/2, and here I have another half. And if I combine both halves, I multiply 1/2 times 2, I get 1/2 and 1/2. My answer is 1. So I could come back here and say 2 times 1/2 equals 1. You also notice that when I take a whole number and I multiply it times 1/2, my answer is half of the number that I'm multiplying 1/2 by. So here's another example. 2 times 1/3. Well, again, if I'm multiplying something by 2, I just have to take 2 of those. So here's 1/3. Here's another 1/3. Combine them together, and I end up with 1/3, 1/3. My answer is 2/3. 2 times 1/3 is 2/3. So let's talk about some geometry terms that we will be using as we're looking at maps later on in this unit. This is called a point, and it's just that. It's just a dot or a point, and oftentimes we'll see it labeled with a letter. That's a point. We also are going to look at line segments, and line segments are made up of 2 points with a line connecting those 2 points. And so again, my points are labeled with letters, and if I'm going to actually write what this line segment is, this is what it's going to look like either in your textbook or on a test. It's going to have the 2 point labels and then a line over those 2 letters. Now we can also talk about lines, not line segments, but the entire line. Again, we have 2 points and a line connecting them, but off of each point is the line extended with an arrow facing out. What this tells us is that this line goes off in those 2 directions forever. And so I label it again with the labels of my 2 points, and then I draw the line over them, but this time I add the arrows to represent that this is a full line and not just a line segment. And lastly, we have what are called rays. Rays are a point. It has a fixed point that is a starting point, but then the line goes off forever in one direction. It doesn't go off forever in both directions, but only one direction. Now we still have 2 points here, so I label, if I'm going to write it on a test or something, it's going to be labeled with both letters for the points. Then I'm going to draw a line over it and have the arrow only pointing in one direction, not both. And those are some of the key terms that we'll be using when discussing checking geometry and looking at maps and measuring distances on maps.